Hey, before the video begins, let me just say here and now that this is not a complete timeline. This isn't really going to even have a script like my other videos. This is just a nerd rambling about a hyperfixation, okay? Good. Now I can explain how this grown man isn't actually grown at all, but he's 5 years old and he thinks that babies are born from your eyeballs.
Why?
Guilty Gear Strive. I was recently gifted this game by a friend. Arlie, I know you're watching this video. Money match me right now. See, I'm a big fighting game fan, even if I'm not actually good at any of them. But I love the characters, and I love the music, and I love the visuals. It's all super cool for a casual like me. And Guilty Gear Strive really excels at all of these. I mean, I can listen to a song like this, and punch a titan through the edges of the screen like this. And look at these characters. We got nightmare doctors, vampire assassins, and just Axl Lows. And those characters have a surprisingly large amount of lore and backstory, which is funny because you don't really need that unless you're a nut that studies the story and what each character did during the story. So, instead of a full-on timeline explaining what character was doing what at what point, I'm just going to list off a bunch of favorite little tidbits about each character. And obviously not all of them, there's so many characters and just not enough time. This video's so late as it is. And maybe a few parts of the story to help explain. I guess to start on that note, why is it even called Guilty Gear in the first place? Well, to explain that, we gotta explain what a gear is in the first place. And to explain that, I have to explain what Y2K is. Okay, so in the 90s, there was a scare that all of the technology of the world was going to fail once New Year's hit, because they thought the computers couldn't count to 2000. Obviously, that didn't happen, because I'm making a video right now. But in the world of Guilty Gear, Y2K does actually happen, and almost all of the world's technology and computers stop working. But it's okay, because some guy named the original said, "Hey guys, I just discovered magic from this alternate dimension called the backyard. You think that work is good?" And everyone else said, "Yeah." Well, everyone except India, but we'll get to that. Okay, are you following so far? Alright, well, there were some scientists working one day in the 2040s-ish, a guy who called himself That Man. First name That, last name Man. And also a guy named Fred and a girl named Arya. Those two were dating. All of these guys were employed by the military to make a bunch of weapons and stuff. One day, they discovered the ability to make a bioweapon, looking like a human but with magic powers up the wazoo. They called these gears. However, instead of trying to make one from scratch, you know, like you probably should, That Man decided to jam the gear ability straight through Fred's chest and make the first human gear hybrid. Then Fred was renamed Soul Bad Guy. Yes, the main character, the good guy of the story, has the last name Bad Guy. And see, that's how the first gear was made and why Soul can do cool fire moves in the game. But that's only half the title. Why is a gear guilty? Well, we gotta look at the other scientist that worked on the first gear, Arya. You see, at some point, Arya was focused on by That Man. Arya's body was then used as a vessel to rebirth the Queen of Gears, Justice. Justice was given one goal: to help all of humanity. Then Justice looked at humanity and said, "These aren't humans, these people kinda suck, they have wars and stuff. I'll just kill them all and start over and make my own humans." Naturally, the only person who could stand a chance against this was another gear, Soul. But Justice still had the soul of Arya in it, so Soul Bad Guy had to kill his wife basically. This made him feel pretty guilty. So that's why it's called Guilty Gear. Now let's take a look at some characters and talk about how cool they are and stuff, because that's kind of the meat of the video. Please listen to me talk about it. I guess it makes sense to talk about the secondary main character and rival to Soul Bad Guy, Kiske. Okay, so when Justice was defeated by Soul, humanity and all gears made after Justice had a big war. Soul Bad Guy on the side of gears was their MVP. The MVP on the side of the humans was Kai. Kai was the legendary gear killer, defeating an insane amount of powerful gears, with only the powers he had from magic, no gear upgrades like Soul. This meant that Soul and Kai knew each other and also hated each other, until one day, Kai was on the hunt for a gear named Dizzy, supposedly one of the most powerful gears and direct descendant of Justice. And he found her in the forest, and he said,
You're hot!
And they promptly fell in love and got married. Also at this time, Kai became the king of the country Illyria. It's made up, it's something about the war reshaping how Europe works. Don't worry about it too much. This makes Dizzy a queen now. It also means that Kai is less gearist now and even talks to Soul Bad Guy once in a while. Not nicely, but he's learning. Then they had a kid together. And this is where I have to bring up something kind of weird. Alright, so gears are bioweapons, right? I said that earlier. They're made to age quickly because bombs explode immediately, I guess. I don't know, that's the best way I could say it without sounding creepy. So this means Dizzy was like 3 years old, and he knew that. He knew how gears worked. There's a joke here about Kai being Christian, but I'm not smart enough for that. Wait, he's also Christian. Joke's ruined. I didn't explain that earlier. She had a kid when she was 5, and now in Guilty Gear Strive, she's like 6 years old. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of weird. I guess I have to explain their kid, too. Sin Kishke is half human and half gear. You probably understood that, whatever. He aged super quickly due to being a gear, but not as fast or as maturely as Dizzy. So, in Strive, this Goku-built guy has the maturity level of a 6-year-old. He fights while talking about making it home in time for bedtime so his mom doesn't get mad. He doesn't know how babies are born. So yeah, by all accounts, this guy, who is more buff than I will ever be, can't do multiplication math problems.
Do you know your arithmetic at least?
Boy, what's a rhythm tip?
Alright. Let's take a break from talking about gears and let's talk about some regular old humans. Like this guy. Okay, so pretty much all the characters in Guilty Gear were made to be as cool as possible. We need to understand that first. Different facets of cool, but all cool nonetheless. But no one compares to Johnny. Johnny is a cowboy, pirate, samurai. All three of those things at once. He fights with a big katana, and he loves duels of honor. But he's also the captain of the Jellyfish Pirate Gang, a group of orphans that Johnny adopted and considers his big family that also rob people. And he's a cowboy, from his southern drawl to the way he flirts with every woman he sees, except those in the pirate gang. Like I know. This is a character we can talk about later, but right now, this is a witch. Through and through. Pointy hat, uses magic, has an evil laugh, all of those things, that's a witch, baby. One day, Johnny told her to stop calling herself a witch, because he can't stand when women get called anything derogatory. And I know, this ultra-powerful witch, one of the strongest characters in the lore, listen to him, because he was just that charming. He's cocky, he's cool, he's confident, that's Johnny. Also, he has an insane gambling problem. It's so bad that he has to have one of his pirate daughters hold on to all of his funds. He's so cool. Well, that's Johnny. Let's go from one completely normal human being to another completely normal human being.
Mankind knew that they cannot change society. So instead of reflecting on themselves, they blamed the beasts. Heaven or hell.
Won't abandon patience. Take care.
This is Faust. He's a murderous doctor monster thing. He attacks with a giant scalpel. He's 9 feet tall, or at least he would be if he wasn't struggling to stand up straight at all times. He knows how to crawl on all fours, completely normal for humans. However, he wasn't always like this. Faust used to be a completely normal human doctor. But actually this time, his name was Dr. Baldhead. I know, you're laughing. Stop, please. This is a little serious, alright? He was benevolent and kind, and he helped anyone he could, regardless of if they had money. That's how you know this game is fiction. Well, one day, a little girl died in his care. He was absolutely devastated. Then, the shock turned into insanity as Dr. Baldhead became a serial killer, way back during the story of the first ever Guilty Gear game. And then, after that game where he saved the day, people cheered for him, and something about the way he'd saved them and they celebrated him kind of fixed him. Not 100%, but he realized all the lives he'd taken were unjust and that his actions were wrong. So he put a big paper bag over his head and was reborn as Faust. Not reborn like Arya into justice, just kinda, he's not really a gear, but Yeah. He roamed the earth and helped people free of charge to help atone for his sins. Like in the last game that came out before Strive, look at him. He's still kind of weirdly proportioned and stuff, but he's having fun. What changed between these two games? Well, that gets answered in the story DLC for Guilty Gear Strive. I don't know. I took a look at the Guilty Gear fan wiki, and they said that because Faust overexerted when trying to contain a character named Delilah's magic outburst, his soul kinda left him and he went back to being insane. But does that explain why he's able to do this? Not really, but hey, now he's cool and kinda freaky. Not that kind of freaky. I think next I'll explain that Delilah character. That's a 12-year-old girl named Delilah Bedman. Magically strong, but not really able to control it. She's got a cool design, and her story's pretty cool, but she's not a lot, honestly. Anyway, it's not her you fight. This is Bedman. Well, kinda. In the previous game, there was a character named Romeo Newman, a super genius with a brain so powerful that being awake for extended periods of time and using his brain to the fullest would actually be a health hazard to him. The main villain of that game, which is a whole can of worms that I don't have time to open right now, so I'll just call them the Force from Star Wars, tricks Romeo into helping it by offering him and his sister sanctity when humanity gets wiped off the face of the planet. Romeo agrees and was given the bed frame robot you can see him in. He wasn't outright evil, even going so far as to remember the names of all the people he'd killed, thinking it was possible that when this idealized world was made, he could possibly resurrect them. Until the end of that game's story mode, where the Force from Star Wars reveals to Romeo that it actually really hates everyone and taunts him with the fact that, oh, you believed my lie, all those people you killed, they're never coming back. In a rage, Romeo awakens fully and attempts to stop the Force from Star Wars, and comes really close, but unfortunately his condition overcomes him and he dies. Delilah is still alive after this, and from what I could gather from this YouTube video explaining the lyrics of The Circle, Bedman's theme song, Bedman refuses a spot in heaven in order to essentially become her guardian, this freakish giant mechanical bed that's always nearby. Plus a Dream Theater reference! Alright, that's enough about Bedman and Delilah. Let's talk about Chipp Zanuff. Chipp is a ninja. I mean, look at him, right? The fit, the moves. He's totally a ninja, right? Well, he's not Japanese. In the lore of Guilty Gear, Chipp is the biggest weeb you've ever seen. He's American. When he was a teenager, he was left struggling after the war between the Gears and humans I mentioned a long time ago. He was actually a struggling drug addict, but was helped by an old Japanese man who became his mentor. That's why Chipp is so obsessed with Japan. It's because his mentor taught him and saved him from his worst moment. Unfortunately, his master was assassinated later, which crushed Chipp. Then he vowed revenge on the Assassin's Guild. He didn't know who did it, but he knew someone in there was responsible. Then in a different game, Chipp got kind of weird, man. He saw this one area in Africa and said, "This is mine." Yeah, he's a colonizer. I will say, let me saith, that this area was suffering as a war zone during the war, and the locals weren't receiving any aid despite all the toil around them, so he was helping them, and he never hurt any of the locals or anything like that. But he waltzed in, called the place the Eastern Chipp Kingdom, and started teaching the children Japanese. Keep in mind, he doesn't know Japanese himself, so he's teaching them words like sushi and kamikaze. Also, he has a pet otter. He taught the otter Japanese and other ninja skills. Trust me, that's super important. With all this being said, you're probably wondering who the strongest character in Guilty Gear is. Could be Soul, maybe the first Gear, or Kai, a human strong enough to stand toe-to-toe with Soul. Nah, it's Axl Rose. I mean, Axl Low, yeah, copyright free. So you remember way earlier in the video when I said that Guilty Gear takes place in the future? No? Yeah, I don't blame you, I don't even remember if I said it. Anyway, this game takes place in the year 2187, but Axl here isn't from that year, he's from the 90s. You know, if you couldn't tell from his attire. One day, Axl was sipping on tea and then just kind of popped into the future. There's not a huge explanation on it, it kind of just happens. What we do know is that eventually Axl learns to control it, meaning he could go back to the 90s where he belonged and see his girlfriend again. But there's a problem. If he did that, the entirety of Guilty Gear would be eviscerated because time travel stuff. He's promised everyone that he's not gonna go back in time, but he really misses his girlfriend and it's getting pretty tough to stay. That's why he's the strongest character in Guilty Gear. If he wanted, he could destroy the entire timeline. Good thing he doesn't want to, and good thing no one else wants to use that power. That computer kicked my butt. After that whole ordeal, we can jump to the very opposite end of the spectrum and talk about who I'm fairly certain is the weakest character in Guilty Gear. This is Bridget. Bridget has a cool yo-yo and a teddy bear. She needs money.
Wow! That is relatable!
She gets money by one of two ways. Sometimes she uses that yo-yo to do cool tricks and street perform, and the other half of the time she's a bounty hunter capturing foes for money. There's a fairly funny thing that happened where she found Dizzy like a year after she and Kai married, and she said, "Alright Dizzy, I'm here to collect your bounty." Only for Dizzy to sit down and explain to Bridget that no, she's not wanted anymore, she's literally the queen and married to the king. And then Bridget just kind of went, oh, and wandered somewhere else to make money. I said earlier that she was the weakest character of Guilty Gear, but let it be clear, she is strong. That yo-yo is nuts. It's just that every other character is crazy. A normal person could potentially beat Bridget in a fight if they were like Bruce Lee levels of martial artist, but when it comes to cool firepower and sheer strength, kiss your butt goodbye or something. The funny thing about Guilty Gear I like is that each and every character is someone's favorite, whether it's because of the theme song, or the character playstyle, or their lore. There's gonna be someone here you absolutely click with. With that, let me talk to you about my favorite character. And to lead into that, I need to ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to help people, but just couldn't because of who's in charge of the world? You want to help everyone possible, but know it's ultimately fruitless because the greedy people up top made the rules? So is he.
I'm a cloud of fire!
This is Potemkin. Born into slavery, Potemkin was trained to be as strong as possible to combat in the story of the first Guilty Gear game. But later in the game's lore, Potemkin eventually helped stage a revolution in his country and succeeded. Slavery was abolished, and Potemkin was given the role of a general. He serves his country with pride now, but Potemkin still has doubts about his actions. He worries that his actions might not be aiding those in need, and that once he's done, all the work he's been putting into making the world a better place will be undone. However, instead of letting these doubts take control of his mind and sow doubt into him, he relies on his faith to believe that he can change the world for the better, and that what he's doing will make the youth of tomorrow live easier and less painful lives than he did. You know what's funny? I wrote that part of the script before doing any research on him. All I did was listen to the lyrics that his theme song had and watch this singular meme. Potemkin is my favorite Guilty Gear character, not just because I'm bad at fighting games and he makes it easy, but his character and story are so complex despite his stupid gameplay. And it sucks because he has no love from the Guilty Gear team. I mean, yeah, sure, competitively he's top tier and everything, but he doesn't have a unique line fighting anyone unless it's a mirror match with another Potemkin. He didn't make a single appearance in the anime that came out. He has less than 5 minutes of screen time in the 5-hour story mode. I want to know more about him. I want to know what he thinks of characters like Bridget and Kai. But even then, he's still my favorite character in Guilty Gear, and my inspiration for making this video. We didn't really make that much progress. I did not mention Nagoriyuki, the vampire samurai, or Gold Lewis Dickinson, the burger-loving, America-loving chief of Area 51, or Lucy Cyberpunk, but I haven't uploaded in months. I gotta make something. With that said, thank you for watching. And also, there's more than likely some errors in this video. I'm sorry about that if I ruined your favorite character, but as you can probably guess, this game series lore is complicated. Especially for someone like me who doesn't have access to the Japan exclusive pachinko machine that has lore in it.